Want to turn the mic over to our trustee steward and member of the governance board, Al Walters, to talk about the 100th anniversary kickoff. It seems that today is a very special day. So Al, I'm going to turn this over to you.
Well, thank you, Pastor Felicia. Good morning, everyone. It's 2024, so it's time to think about the 100th anniversary of this building. I will speak periodically through the year on different topics. I know you're all just itching to have a history lesson, so let's get on with it. And I'll bet most of you failed to observe an important 100-year anniversary yesterday. You can be excused, I suppose, as most of us didn't remember 100 years ago yesterday, January 20th, 1924, the cornerstone for this church building was laid. But more about that in a minute. I'd like to first take us back through the prior 88 years of Methodism in Elgin, the 88 years that preceded the laying of the cornerstone, and bring us up to that moment. In December of 1836, our town was only a year old when the Reverend Washington Wilcox delivered the first known Methodist sermon in Elgin. It was titled, "To See Thy Power and Thy Glory as I Seen It in the Sanctuary." In 1838, the Elgin Circuit was soon formed, and it would be known quickly as the Rock River Conference. And they would appoint the Reverend Wilcox as our first minister. Early church services in Elgin were held in log cabins. In 1838, the Union Chapel was built jointly by the Congregationalists and the Baptists. Located at DuPage and Geneva Streets, it contained Elgin's first church bell. Soon we Methodists would share the Union Chapel, holding our services there until our first building could be constructed. On June 23rd, 1839, we partnered with other city churches to sponsor a great camp revival meeting near today's Lord's Park. A huge tent that could shield 300 attendees was brought from Chicago. It was probably the largest piece of cloth anyone had ever seen. The tent was made from the mainsail of a British warship Commodore Perry had captured on Lake Erie during the War of 1812. Later, that sail would be destroyed in the Great Chicago Fire. Elgin's founder, James T. Gifford, was a man of faith. Early on, Gifford announced that any denomination, regardless of belief, would be granted a free church lot for their church building. Giving away free church lots proved to be a wonderful marketing tool for Mr. Gifford, as it attracted many faithful to settle in Elgin and led to the town being known as the City of Churches. In 1840, Methodists accepted Gifford's generosity, and we constructed on a donated lot our first building. The Buttermilk Church, as it became known, was a 24-foot by 32-foot wood frame building, built on this very corner. Its nickname comes from the homemade white buttermilk paint that was used to enhance the exterior. In May of 1865, as Abraham Lincoln was being laid to rest, Elgin's observance of his burial, timed to correspond with the actual interment in Springfield, included a procession led by a fife and drum, which wound its way through town to our church, where Elgin's community funeral service was held. The Buttermilk Church would serve us until 1866, when it was sold to the newly formed Second Baptist Church, who was serving Elgin's first blacks. The contraband, as they were known, were freed Mississippi and Alabama slaves who were resettled in Elgin during the Civil War. The Second Baptists moved the building to the northwest corner of Dundee and Kimball. In 1875, our first church building would be lost to fire. Between 1866 and 1868, our second building was constructed, named the Centenary Church, as 1866 marked the centennial of John Wesley arriving in Savannah, Georgia, and giving birth to Methodism in America. The Centenary Church was built of brick at a cost of $30,000. It, too, was built on this corner. The pastor at the time of construction was the Reverend William D. Atchison, a Civil War veteran. He served as the chaplain to the Illinois 45th Volunteers and Elgin Area Civil War Unit. As such, Reverend Atchison saw action in several major battles and marched from Atlanta to the sea with General William Tecumseh Sherman. In 1888, the local newspaper reported that the church was renting its pews for the next year. No doubt that was a fundraising ploy. Over the years, the building was enlarged several times via additions. The Centenary Church featured twin steeples, one of which was damaged by the Palm Sunday tornado of 1920. Since our services were already concluded, few were in our building and no one was harmed. 2 women and a girl were killed a block away at the Congregational Church, and another woman died inside the Baptist Church. 7 or 8 Elginites died that day at the hands of Elgin's worst tornado. Prior to the tornado, church leaders were already concerned about overcrowding and were taking steps to build a 3rd, larger structure. The damaged steeple probably moved that process along. Wonderfully, the cornerstone from the 1866 church was incorporated into this building. You can see it in the east atrium just through those sanctuary doors. Just ask, I'll give you a tour. Knowing a new and larger building was in their near future, church leaders in 1914 purchased a house and a lot to the west of the Centenary building. Constructed 60 years prior, it was a cobblestone home and one of Elgin's oldest and finest homes. Built by the Dr. Joseph Teft, a frontier medical doctor and Elgin's first mayor, it was sold by his granddaughter, who offered a slight discount when she learned our church was to be the purchaser. Members raised $12,800 of the needed $14,000. This included an anonymous, generous gift of $7,000 that was thought to have come from David C. Cook. For a short time, Dr. Teft's cobblestone would house the Centenary Nursery and Sunday School. In 1916, more land was purchased to the west of the church. Now, First Methodist owned more than half of a city block. Elgin's post office sat on the western section of the block in the site of today's Rogers Park. But that's enough history for today. In future talks this year, we'll discuss the actual construction of the building, important events that were hosted in this building down through the years, and ultimately, the dedication of this magnificent building in November. For now, as I leave you today, I'll ask you to notice the cornerstone at the base of the west entrance ramp. It's clearly engraved with the year 1924. As I said, it was laid 100 years and 1 day ago. It houses a copper box containing pictures, papers, and Bibles. Bishop Nicholson was present. January 20th, 1924 was a minus 20-degree day in Elgin. I can only suspect it was a short ceremony. Thank you.